Days Gone is a 2019 open-world action-adventure game from Bend Studios, set in Oregon 2 years after a pandemic turned most of the world into cannibalistic zombies, or freakers as they're known in the world of Days Gone. The story follows the life of Deacon St, a former soldier turned mongrel biker gang enforcer, and his search for his missing, presumed dead wife Sarah. The game kicks off with Deacon, Sarah and their friend and fellow mongrel MC member Boozer attempting to escape the chaotic infected city. They hear of an extraction point organised by Nero, a government agency set up to help in times of emergency, and decide to head to the escape point. However, in the turmoil, Sarah gets stabbed and the attempt to flee to safety becomes even more urgent. The beleaguered trio make it to the extraction area only to find out from Nero agent O'Brien that only 2 people can board the helicopter. Having to choose between leaving the overrun city with his injured wife or staying behind and helping his friend Boozer, who has also been injured, Deacon opts to stay and help his buddy as Sarah is being taken to safety anyway, but Boozer's fate is not so assured. Once they're out the city, Deacon and Boozer head for the refugee camp where Sarah was being taken, only to find it had been overrun by the brainless, ravenous freakers. Deacon, convinced that nobody could have survived, concludes that Sarah has met her demise. The game then jumps forward 2 years and catches up with Deacon and Boozer, who are doing their best to survive in a savage new world. Not only do they have to contend with the freakers who roam the landscape looking for food, but also other survivors who have formed into various gangs and encampments. Some just want to survive and live in relative safety, while others are more cult-like and frankly psychotic. The duo make ends meet by collecting bounties for the numerous factions that are vying for resources in the area, and it's running errands for one of these factions that Deacon comes across a Nero helicopter. Following it to where it lands, he overhears the people aboard talk about O'Brien, the same man that was present on the night Sarah was flown out the city. This spark of information lights the flame of hope for Deacon and makes him wonder if Sarah could still be alive. If there was a Nobel Prize for originality, then Days Gone wouldn't be winning it. It treads the usual virus wipes out most of humanity trope that we have seen in film, TV and game media for a long time. However, Days Gone does make a laudable effort to mix things up a little. Days Gone freakers are fast, strong and possess some awareness. The main character of Deacon and his involvement in the world of biker gangs is a nice angle, and the fact that the game is set mainly in a rural environment is a pleasant change. These things alone don't amount to a radical reimagining of the zombie genre, but they do serve as some nice distinguishing details. The story of Days Gone is compelling enough to keep you wondering what lies ahead.
Do it.
This PC version of Days Gone is a nice looking game. The landscapes of Oregon are reproduced with dense realistic looking foliage, and the nicely detailed derelict buildings and vehicles liberally coated with good looking textures create an excellent post-apocalyptic atmosphere. Light and shadow are also used to great effect and further add to the game's tense feel. Character models are also good, our main protagonist Deacon looking particularly sharp, with excellent levels of detail from his MC cuts right down to his weathered boots. This attention to detail is carried over to most of the game's main NPCs. The freakers, as expected, are not quite so graphically enthralling, although you can tell an effort has been made to make the hordes of these husks of human society look as individual as they once were. Animations are really solid, with Deacon carrying out his various moves like sprinting, rolling and jumping in realistic fashion. Facial expressions and lip syncing are also portrayed well. Deacon's full array of emotions are convincingly carried out via his digital face, adding to the great world building. On the game's release, one of the gripes people seem to have was with performance, but I'm happy to say that I didn't have many issues on this front. Of course it depends heavily on your hardware, but on my mid-range rig I found performance to be good. I found the frame rate stayed nice and consistent when traversing the world on foot and on my trusty bike, and in general combat the game didn't falter. The only time I did experience a few occasions of dodgy frame rate and pacing was during confrontations with freaker hordes, where huge amounts of enemies are on screen at the same time. However, these occurrences were very minor, which actually surprised me as there is a lot going on for an extended duration during these sections of play. I did notice a few occasions of pop-in here and there, but again nothing major. Draw distances were generally pretty good. I do feel I need to give special mention to the game's UI. It's simply stunning. Stylised menus use big bold imagery from the game coupled with smooth transition animations to further highlight the game's excellent presentation. Everything is intuitively laid out and accessible, and if like me you're a bit of a UI nerd, you'll really appreciate what Days Gone brings to the table. Overall, the visuals in Days Gone are pretty impressive. They conjure up a feeling that Mother Nature is taking back control, and with that comes a stark beauty. This beauty sits alongside the horrific aftermath of the virus and its effects on the human race. It's a very competent bit of art direction, backed up by technically good visuals, and scores a well-deserved 23 out of 25 for graphics. Days Gone is an open-world action game set in the US state of Oregon. Its large map can be traversed on foot, by motorbike or via the fast travel points that can be opened up when certain conditions are met. With Deacon being a motorcycle club member, you would expect the motorbike-based travel to be on point, and I'm happy to say it is exactly that. Your bike feels like it has some weight to it, and you almost feel the shockwave going up your spine as you test your suspension on an ill-judged jump. Despite the realistic feeling of weight given to your bike, it also handles well. You have the ability to drift around corners, which becomes natural quickly, and before you know it, you're whizzing about the landscape like a pro. The great bike travel does make walking around on foot feel a bit laborious by comparison, but it's worth doing though, as taking things a bit slower can offer its own rewards. The game also includes a well thought out fast travel system. To fast travel you must have previously discovered the landmark, and in some instances you have to destroy freaker nests to clear the route before a fast travel option can be unlocked. Another consideration for fast travel is fuel. You need to be able to complete the journey on the gas you have, or no fast travel for you. I really like this system. It makes you think about how your journeys will play out rather than just mindlessly fast travelling everywhere. There does have to be some form of planning to your mission. We're not talking World War II levels of strategy here, but it does require at least some passing thought. Oregon is a dangerous place, and you need to know you have the resources to escape if things go south. Missions in Days Gone take a few forms: the main story missions, encampment jobs and side missions. The main story quests revolve around Deacon uncovering the truth around his wife's death and the cause of the freaker virus. There is some crossover with the main story into some of the encampment missions, which provides a nice tie-in. Like most open world games, the side mission structure in Days Gone follows the familiar pattern of the NPCs you come across dishing out your quests. These NPCs can be found in the encampments that you come across in different regions on the map. These encampments act as factions who rule over that particular area. As drifters, Deacon and Boozer are not affiliated to any particular group. They act as independent contractors who do the camp's dirty work. These side missions can include bounty hunts, clearing out rival camps and rescuing hostages. These activities earn Deacon credits, the game's currency, to purchase things from camp like weapons, ammo and supplies. They also earn trust. Trust levels open up new weapons to buy, new throwable items and new upgrades for your bike, so doing your best for the camps can pay dividends. Alongside these encampment missions, you have a selection of other activities you can indulge in spread across the map. You can find Nero research stations that you have to find a way into, and in doing so you can get Nero injectors, which give Deacon permanent uplifts in his stats. There are also a wealth of things to collect and craft with. The biggest and arguably best side activity though is fighting hordes. Hordes are huge gatherings of freakers, and I do mean huge. They can number into the hundreds. They swarm on you like water, and these fights can be over before they start if you don't go into them well equipped and ready for a tear up. Utilising the environment to put distance between you and the starving mob of ex-humans behind you is paramount, as is blowing up the somewhat conveniently placed fuel and gas tanks to wipe out swathes of your pursuers at a time. These fights are big, thrilling and a huge amount of fun. Combat in Days Gone is a mix of gunplay, melee and stealth. You will probably find yourself shooting and using melee the most, and both feel great. There is a pretty broad range of guns available, each with their own handling, strengths and weaknesses. Aiming is intuitive and shooting the various inhabitants of Oregon feels satisfying. Melee isn't quite so enjoyable, but it's good nonetheless. There are a wealth of items that you can use to slash, batter and stab with, which can get you out of a tight spot if you run out of ammo, which early game is fairly scarce. Stealth is also a good option, especially early doors. Days Gone's sneaking mechanics are pretty much as you would expect. Going into stealth mode and staying hidden gives you the option of taking out enemies without alerting their buddies. I am slightly biased here as I love stealth in games, but Days Gone is set up in such a way that you can pretty much ignore it, or at least keep it to a bare minimum if it doesn't float your boat. Combat in games can be make or break depending on how well your character responds and moves, and I'm glad to say Deacon is a cooperative protagonist in this respect. Moving around the world, rolling, climbing, sprinting, etc. are all slick and responsive. To complement Deacon's smooth moves, the game also has a great quick inventory system. When you go into the weapon wheel, the game slows to a crawl and you can select a new weapon or explosive to use, or take a health item. You can even craft on the fly. Getting used to this menu system can be a superpower, especially when fighting hordes where you need to improvise quickly. On top of the solid combat system sits the game's progression system. Deacon levels up by earning XP from completing missions and killing foes. Upon levelling up, you're awarded a skill point that can be put into one of 3 skill trees: melee combat, ranged combat and survival skills. The upgrades featured in these trees are many and varied, with 15 upgrades per category. They can give Deacon buffs like being able to slow time so you can make more accurate shots, to more simple things like highlighting collectible plants on the minimap. It's a very straightforward system that can help turn your Deacon into a true wasteland warrior. So we have a wealth of things to do, good traversal options and polished fun combat, so everything is rosy in this zombie infested garden then. Well, not exactly. Days Gone does have a few issues. Firstly, missions can be very samey. They pretty much all follow along the lines of get a quest, go to point A on the map, kill targets or collect item, then report back. It's not a problem confined to Days Gone, to be honest. This criticism can be levelled at a lot of open world games. Personally, I didn't have a problem with the familiar nature of the missions, as I found the gameplay so much fun and the world building so good that I really didn't care that I was basically playing a reformatted version of the same mission over and over. But if you're the sort of person that is more sensitive to repetition, or maybe don't enjoy the core gameplay as much as I did, then this is definitely something to consider before you buy. The other issue I came across during my time with Days Gone was that I found AI to be a bit odd. Not bad per se, just strange. At times I found the AI to be actually quite good. When freakers run straight at you, they have the wherewithal to duck their head away from the sights of your guns, and human enemies would momentarily poke their heads out of cover to draw your fire. Good stuff and nice to see, but at other times I would be caught bang to rights in stealth. An enemy would run at me only to last second veer off and act like nothing had happened. It was a strange turn of events and I found it immersion breaking. It didn't happen often, but when it did I found it a bit grating. Overall, I found the gameplay in Days Gone to be extremely enjoyable. The tight controls and satisfying gunplay set against the backdrop of a gorgeously recreated post-apocalyptic Oregon drew me in and immersed me in a brutal world where humanity is thin on the ground, even among the people who haven't succumbed to the Freaker virus. The huge horde battles are a sight to behold and experience and add to the dangerous, tense atmosphere created by the game. The repetitious nature of the missions and the occasionally schizophrenic AI can mar your enjoyment at times, but Days Gone remains a fun, polished experience and scores a solid 22 out of 25 for gameplay.
Here's the list. Let's burn it up. I got it.
Sound design in Days Gone is executed well and is very fitting for the game. The melancholy theme tune is a nice setup before you start playing, and the music that accompanies you around the world is good, but I wouldn't describe it as memorable. Sound effects are excellent though. Guns and melee weapons sound great. Your motorbike sounds like it would annoy the neighbours if they weren't brainless walking corpses, and the ambient sounds of freakers making their messed up feral squawks is particularly unsettling, especially after dark. Voice performances are strong, with our main man Deacon being played well by the talented Sam Witwer, the other main characters are also played well by their respective actors, with Dee Rescher's portrayal of Ada Tucker being particularly good. Some of the incidental lines uttered by camp inhabitants and enemy combatants can become a little irritating at times, as you do hear them more often than you perhaps should. Days Gone has a good soundtrack, some excellent sound effects and voice performances, and scores a competent 21 out of 25 for audio.
Ripper assholes, come on!
Days Gone is a decent sized game and will take you about 40 hours to complete when focusing on the story, and about 70 hours to see and do everything. There are multiple difficulty levels: easy, normal, hard, survival and survival 2. In the survival modes, the HUD and fast travel are removed and enemies are harder, but materials, ammo, etc. remain unchanged. These modes add to the game's longevity, as they do feel distinctly different to the standard difficulty modes. You also get New Game Plus. You get to keep all your unlocked weapons, bike upgrades, camp trust levels, Nero upgrades and skill points. It's a great way of experiencing the game again and allows you to try new things using weapons that weren't available to you the first time around. There are also a few special weapons you can get in New Game Plus. Days Gone offers a nice package of a large base game and some neat but maybe not essential options to enhance replayability, and scores 21 out of 25 for value.
Bounty.
Overall, I had a blast with Days Gone. A bunch of hours in, and it was hard for me to believe that this is the same game that received such a lukewarm reception from gaming media when it released in 2019. Granted, it's had some patches since then, and this PC version of the game seems to have eliminated a lot of the performance gripes some critics had when the game surfaced on console. My experience with Days Gone was really enjoyable. The game's mechanics are well executed, combat and touring the wilds of Oregon on my bike was a ton of fun, and facing down freaker hordes was exhilarating. The story, although hardly original, is played out through the eyes of an interesting main character and does enough to keep you invested until the end. A lack of variety in missions and a bit of questionable AI here and there does lose the game some kudos, but overall Days Gone scores 87 out of 100.
I'm sorry about your wife, but you're not the only one who lost someone that night.
If you like this video, please consider liking, subscribing and dropping a comment below, and thanks for watching.